Hello all, welcome to this week's video. Sorry for getting out late. I got distracted by some things. It happens. So this week's video comes to us from Mike V. I don't remember the format, but it does come from online. His question to me was, what are some things that you wish your teachers from elementary through high school, for those of us, for those of my fans, those are American schooling systems. So if you're not familiar, it's from about age 5 through graduation of public schooling at around age 18 and before college university. Would have known about you or could have done to help more / better. Now, this is something I need to preface is that when I was 12, I was diagnosed with, as I said, severe emotional handicap, attention deficit disorder, and learning disability not otherwise specified in written expression. This was in 1991. When I was 23, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. That was in 2002. So for them to have known anything, they would have had to have known since way back. I attended a private school for kindergarten through 2nd grade, and then I went to public school kindergarten through 1st grade, and then 2nd grade I started public school, and I stayed there ever since. So what do I wish my teachers would have known? Well, obviously, I really do wish that they had known about the Asperger's syndrome. There was a lot going on. My childhood was incredibly unpleasant. I wish that they had known about the writing issues. By the time I was 12, my writing skills had been pretty much set or not set. It's taken me more than 20 years to undo that damage. So what could I wish they had known? To put me on a typewriter or a computer. I'm old enough that a PC of any value wasn't actually around in the school system until I was well into high school. So a typewriter or a word processor of some kind, the physical word processor really used to print it out line by line, or something of that nature. I wish that they had known about the severe emotional handicap and that combine that with the Asperger's syndrome, the changing of my environment, the changing of classes, the changing of everything was just going to do me wrong. I know that the reason why I never went on to do well in math in school was that I took pre-algebra when I was in 6th grade. And by the time I hit 7th grade, I wasn't allowed to go into algebra. And so I had to take pre-algebra again. And the teacher was not very... No, wait, I took algebra. But the teacher, my 7th grade math teacher, was much more concerned about telling us what kind of problem it was than how to solve it, which to my little Aspie brain, which was about problem solving and not categorization, I'm that kind of Aspie, that didn't do. And I immediately, within a few weeks, dropped out. I went into pre-algebra and I stayed there for 7th and 8th grade because I had to take a math class. They didn't say I had to not take one I hadn't already taken. And when I went on to high school, I took basic high school freshman algebra, and I hated taking it, and I barely passed it. And it had nothing to do with my math ability. I'm actually quite good at math. I just don't like doing it, and I don't like dealing with math teachers who, in general, are much more focused on what to do, but don't understand why. So a good example was I took a sort of a remedial math class in college to remind myself because it had been 8 years, and the instructor said to me, "You're going to have to do all your work." And I said, "No, I'm not. I have this learning disability." So what I ended up being able to do was I wouldn't gain any credit for any work done, but I would get credit for partial, no, not partial work, but basically it was right answers or nothing. So I passed the entire class based upon getting the right answer most of the time. And he said he'd never had anyone pass his class before doing that. I got a B in the course, and when he asked me later, well, why didn't you get an A? I said an A was 100% more effort, and it wasn't worth it. He had then said nobody had ever done that. I said, told me you need to get a better class student. What can you do? So, are there any specific things? Yeah. I know sometimes if you say the ends justify the means, but there's sort of and you got to worry about the means too, but there's a lovely balance point where sometimes the ends determine the means. If you wanted to drive from, say, Chicago to New York, the easiest way would be to hop on Interstate 80 and go east. You wouldn't drive all the way down to Arizona across to Miami and then up to New York. That would be silly. I mean, you could, but you wouldn't. And so in that sense, the ends determine the means. They may not justify the means, but they really should determine it. And many oftentimes I've discovered that many teachers are simply not undertrained in a way, but they let their, how do I express this? They let their enthusiasm, they let their want to help get in the way of learning to do a better job. Or they let they sort of look at the world through rose-colored glasses, and they need to sort of stop and look at a student and go, okay, this student needs this, because we have a factory style of school system in the United States, and people like us, people like Aspies, really do need to be treated as individuals. We need that individualized care. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have one person working with us all the time. That can simply mean, God, I hate to use this term, but goal-oriented approach, where through an IEP, you know what's going to happen and how. And like I expressed in the previous video, parents, this is really a two-part system, parents and teachers. Parents can't dump it all on teachers, and teachers can't dump it all on parents, because the end product is the child. And you could end up very well with a child like me, who is highly knowledgeable, but not very educated. In that I only have what I said, like I said, I only have an associate's degree. I have roughly 90 college credits. I need around 120, 130 to get a bachelor's degree. So I'm 3/4 of the way there. But I'm very smart. And I taught a PhD holder who was in charge of a department at a local university about quantum theory, and he didn't understand the difference between scientific theory and the regular use of theory. So we had a nice little chat. Nice guy. Great. He's going to help me out. It's going to be brilliant. But I am very knowledgeable, but I'm just not that highly educated. I probably could have done a lot better in school if I hadn't had all these things. My mom described to me that in 2nd grade I would leave home when I was sick to go to school because I wanted to go to school so bad. I loved it so much. And that by 5th grade I was doing absolutely anything I could to not go to school. So there was something that happened between 2nd and 5th grade that made everything change. Now, I would love to tell you a lot about growing up for me, but the truth is that I don't really remember anything from 3rd grade on until high school. I was suspended a lot. I was suspended a lot for fighting. I have a hellacious temper. I get blackout angry fairly easily. There's a severe emotional handicap. I go corner of A, B, C, and then I skip all the way to X, Y, Z. If you can imagine anger as a scale, everyone else gets 26 letters. I get 6. So I don't really allow myself to get pissed off anymore. I haven't lost my temper since my freshman year of high school. I'm 34, so that's 20 years. So yeah, what do I wish my teachers could have known? I wish that I could hand them the short version of Asperger's syndrome and of dysgraphia and of severe emotional handicap and attention deficit disorder, just in like a 2-page pamphlet, and go, here's Sean, here's what he does, here's the short version. I think, honestly, if you just clued people in that there was a problem and then let them figure out how to fix it, that people would do a lot better. I can honestly tell you that had I known that I had Asperger's, I would have changed my life. I've mentioned that before. Now imagine the flip side. Imagine, like I said, I've talked about what I would have done differently, what my parents would have done differently, and now imagine what my teachers would have done differently. I've discovered recently that I'm very good at analyzing systems and finding holes in the system, finding point failure sources within a system. And I'm looking into maybe doing that as a career. I don't know what you would do as a career doing that, but maybe I could. And maybe if my teachers had known that, they could have sort of steered me in. When it comes to math, I could have been steered to a teacher who was much less about following a book because she didn't understand the subject, and much more about, okay, here's this, here's that. It's like the difference between, I'm sure some of you have taken a physics course, where somebody who's just studied physics and now goes and teaches it, versus what I had. My college instructor had come from the field after 20 years. And she had bunches of stories, and okay, this equation does this, but really it does this, and then this equation relates to this, and it's just easy peasy stuff, but she taught really fast. And so yeah, I honestly wish my teachers had been informed, and I kind of wish I hadn't gone to the high school I went to. The high school I went to was not very good quality. It had poor administrators and poor teachers. I had some good ones. I admit that. There's good teachers in every single school. I dare you to find a school with every single teacher is awful. I'm sure they exist, but they're gotta be bloody rare. The same thing where every single teacher is good. Most schools have them, but the problem is if 1 in 10 teachers is any good, that means that 9 in 10 students are going to get bad ones. At least once. So that's what I wish. I wish the teachers had known. I wish that I could go back with even a small pamphlet and go, this is Sean, he needs help. Because the Americans with Disabilities Act didn't come out until I was 11. So IEPs weren't even a possibility until I was 11. I know the Civil Rights Act came out in 503 and 504, but that wasn't really that wasn't really known. Special ed was around my entire life, but when they viewed special ed, they viewed it as kids with severe autism, severe Down syndrome. If you were mildly functional, you weren't bad enough. So, anyway, that's kind of my horror story. I'm sure everyone's got their own. Again, remember that you can catch me on Vimeo, on Tumblr, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Facebook. I'd love to hear your stories. Tell me about your time growing up. Tell me about what it would have been like for you to have different teachers. Let's share. Let's get the word out. And y'all have a good week. Bye.